A cargo ship drifts through the Pacific. No explosions, no soldiers, no alarms. And yet, somewhere inside its steel containers, a global war is already happening. Not with missiles, with paperwork. In 2026, the most powerful countries on Earth are fighting each other using a tool so boring most people ignore it. Tariffs, import taxes, line items in trade agreements. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This tariff war isn't about protecting workers. It isn't about nationalism, and it definitely isn't about fairness. It's about control. And it's already reshaping prices, jobs, currencies, and alliances, whether people realize it or not. For decades, the global system ran on a simple promise. Free trade makes everyone richer. Countries specialize, goods move cheaply, consumers win, corporations scale, governments collect growth without asking too many questions. That system peaked somewhere around the late 2010s. Then came pandemics, then supply chain shocks, then wars, then inflation. And suddenly, cheap and efficient felt dangerously fragile. By 2026, governments aren't asking how to trade more. They're asking who they depend on and whether that dependence is a weapon. So they reach for tariffs again. A tariff is just a tax on imports. Simple idea, but in practice, it's a lever. Pull it and prices shift, supply chains bend, retaliation follows. Country A raises tariffs on steel. Country B responds with tariffs on agriculture. Country C quietly subsidizes its own firms to offset the damage. Nobody wins cleanly, but nobody can afford to back down. That's how trade wars start, not with rage, with spreadsheets. The current escalation didn't come out of nowhere. The earlier tariff battles between the United States and China never really ended. They just cooled down, got rebranded, and spread. By 2026, tariffs are no longer blunt tools. They're targeted. Semiconductors, electric vehicles, critical minerals, AI hardware, green energy components. The products that decide who owns the future. Every major economy now claims the same justification: national security. That phrase does a lot of work. Here's where the math gets uncomfortable. When a country raises tariffs, the cost rarely falls on foreign exporters for long. It lands on consumers through higher prices, businesses through squeezed margins, workers through slower growth or layoffs. But politically, tariffs are convenient. The pain is spread out. The blame is external. The signal is strong. You hit us, we hit back. It looks decisive. It sounds patriotic. It polls well, even when the numbers don't. Let's talk supply chains. In the old system, efficiency ruled. Components crossed borders multiple times before becoming a finished product. A phone might involve 12 countries, a car more than 30. Tariffs break that logic. Companies now redesign supply chains not for cost, but for survival. They relocate factories, they duplicate suppliers, they friend-shore production to politically aligned countries. This makes goods more expensive and systems more redundant. Redundancy sounds safe until you realize everyone is doing it at once. The irony is subtle. Tariffs are meant to reduce dependence, but collectively they make the global system more fragile. Less specialization, more duplication, higher costs everywhere. It's like every country building its own backup generator and causing a global power shortage in the process. Then there's retaliation. Tariffs almost never stay one-sided. They escalate in layers. First, direct counter-tariffs, then regulatory barriers, then currency responses, then informal pressure, delays, inspections, safety reviews. Trade becomes slower. Uncertainty rises, investment hesitates. Markets don't panic all at once, they leak confidence. And this is where 2026 feels different. Earlier trade wars were about goods, this one is about systems.
technology standards, payment networks, energy transition supply chains, data flows. Control over these doesn't just shape profits, it shapes geopolitics. Developing countries are caught in the middle. They're offered incentives to choose sides. Cheap financing here, market access there, subtle warnings everywhere. Align wrong and tariffs appear. Align right and subsidies follow. Neutrality becomes expensive. What about institutions? In theory, the World Trade Organization exists to manage exactly this. In practice, it's struggling. Dispute mechanisms are slow. Enforcement is weak. Major powers increasingly ignore rulings they don't like. The rules-based system still exists, but power-based trade is back. Quietly. Supporters of tariffs argue this is necessary, that resilience matters more than efficiency, that strategic industries must be protected, that free trade was naive. They're not entirely wrong. But here's the catch. Tariffs don't just protect industries, they protect inefficiencies too. Once in place, they're politically hard to remove. Protected firms stop competing globally. Prices stay high, innovation slows, and the public pays indefinitely. There's a darker layer. Tariff revenue becomes addictive. Governments start budgeting around it. Removing tariffs creates fiscal holes. Temporary measures turn permanent. The emergency never ends. Zoom out. The global tariff war of 2026 isn't a single conflict, it's a pattern. A slow shift from cooperation to fragmentation, from optimization to insulation, from trust to suspicion. Trade is no longer about comparative advantage, it's about leverage. And leverage cuts both ways. Tariffs can protect you today, but they can isolate you tomorrow. They can punish rivals, but they can also lock you out of innovation networks you didn't even know you needed. The cost doesn't show up immediately. It shows up years later, as missed breakthroughs, as slower growth, as quiet decline. So here's the question that doesn't have a clean answer. In a world where economic dependence can be weaponized, is a more expensive, fragmented system actually safer? Or are we building walls so high that we forget what we lose on the other side? Because once tariffs become the language of power, free trade doesn't end with a crash. It fades. And history suggests that when trade fades, something louder usually replaces it.
A single cargo ship drifts across the Pacific Ocean. The water is calm, the sky is clear. Nothing looks urgent, nothing looks dangerous. No explosions, no soldiers, no alarms. Just steel floating on blue water. And yet, somewhere inside those containers, a global war is already underway. Not with missiles, not with drones, not with headlines screaming breaking news. This war is fought with paperwork, invoices, customs forms, tariff schedules, legal clauses buried deep inside trade agreements nobody ever reads. In 2026, the most powerful countries on Earth are fighting each other using a weapon so boring most people ignore it. Tariffs, import taxes, percentages quietly added at borders, small numbers that look harmless until they compound. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This so-called tariff war isn't really about protecting workers. It isn't about nationalism, no matter how often flags appear on stage. And it definitely isn't about fairness. It's about control. Control over supply chains, control over technology, control over who gets rich, who stays dependent, and who gets left behind. And whether people realize it or not, this war is already reshaping prices, jobs, currencies, investments, and alliances, slowly, quietly, relentlessly. For decades, the global economic system ran on a simple promise: free trade makes everyone richer. Countries specialize in what they do best. Factories focus on efficiency. Goods move cheaply across borders. Consumers enjoy lower prices. Corporations scale faster than ever before. Governments collect growth without micromanaging production. It felt elegant, almost inevitable. Specialized factories fed smooth conveyor belts. Products crossed borders again and again before reaching your hands. Everyone trusted the system to keep moving. That system reached its peak sometime in the late 2010s. Then, reality intervened. First came pandemics. Factories shut down overnight. Ports froze. Essential goods vanished from shelves. Then came supply chain shocks. Ships stuck in canals. Semiconductor shortages halting entire industries. Just in time suddenly became just too late. Then came wars. Energy supplies weaponized, food exports restricted, shipping routes rerouted around conflict zones. Then came inflation, the kind that doesn't care about explanations. Suddenly, cheap and efficient didn't sound smart anymore. They sounded fragile. By 2026, governments stopped asking how to trade more. They started asking something darker. Who do we depend on? And if things go wrong, can that dependence be used against us? That question changed everything. So governments reached for tariffs. Again. On paper, a tariff is simple. It's just a tax on imports. That's it. But in practice, it's a lever, and levers change systems. Pull it slightly, and prices shift. Pull it harder, and supply chains bend. Pull it repeatedly, and retaliation